So we have Keegan Livermore joining us. I'd like to hear a Ichishkin introduction, please.
I nich maitskui.
I want to hear more, please.
Oh, Winnickshash, Willem Chuchuch, Kushuptumki, Keegan Livermore, Kuten Chash, Ichishkin Sunwat Pa, Tumuthla Nashwa, Ichishkin Sunwatai.
Okay, let's just start off with the basics. Okay, for me, can you be the teacher?
Sure.
My name is Ryan Craig, and I don't have my Indian name yet. I have a goal and a plan to get one in the future, so I'll just go with my English name today. So
Ink Nash Winnicksha.
Ink Nox Winnicksha.
Ryan Craig.
Ryan Craig. Now, do I say Shukhmaitsky or Nukhmaitsky? Who do I ask in my family to find out what dialect I come from?
You could ask your Kutla or your Allah or your Tilla or your Pusha, any of your grandparents, or any aunties or uncles. It's Sheikh Maitzkli is from more here in the valley. Nich Maitzkli is more along the river. And of course, our ancestors and people have been migratory, so they would spend summers down at the river and then falls more in the mountains, and then in the winter they would hibernate and it would be storytelling and making things for the spring, and then they would move to their gathering areas for roots and things. So of course our people moved all around, but the identities of river people or valley people kind of guide that Sheikh versus Nich.
Or at this point in time, our ancestors, yours or mine or whoever's listening, could be from both or all.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone had their usual and accustomed places to go. One of my staff members at the language program, Bronsko Jim, he is from Goldendale. He's from the river area, and he this summer was doing a lot of exploration with some of his elders of some of their gathering sites and finding places where there had been encampments set up when they were in that area. So it's been super cool to kind of hear about his journey of actually going and seeing the living history of those areas.
Wouldn't that be amazing to be able to do that?
Yeah. It's something that I think a lot of our people sort of know instinctively of, oh, my family always goes and picks berries here, always goes and dig roots here. But it seems the history piece beside it of, oh, my ancestors, my grandmother's grandmother, etc., have also been to these areas. That I think is another layer of significance that doesn't always get thought about.
I know we need to stay on track a little bit. I'm going to share a story, can I?
Yeah, of course.
So when you were saying that, it reminded me of something. Let's see. My grandma, the late Teresa Adams Finder, she was part Suquamish. So her dad, which would be my great-grandfather, the late William Adams, he was half Suquamish, half Yakama. And so when he was a kid, he found a way to get from Suquamish over here to Atanum, and then he was adopted into a family and grew to be a man and stayed in the Atanum area. But anyway, the story of how he went from Suquamish to Atanum was a story I never got a lot of details on. But I went with my kids and my mom and my siblings to Suquamish for Chief Seattle Days, which is like a modern celebration, you know, with the barbecue and fun run and stuff. But I said to my brother, I said, it feels like I've been here before, even though I hadn't been there. So when you were saying that, then it reminded me, like, I just felt like I belonged there, even though I didn't know my great-grandfather, even though I had never been to that location or that spot. Something inside of my heart and mind said, oh, I've been here before.
Yeah, I always feel like there's a sense, and this is going to maybe sound a little weird, but like blood memory where like you just know something and there's some part of you that recognizes it. I know a lot of people have that sense when they hear our language or our songs where they're just like, oh, like this is resonating in a way that I wasn't prepared to experience in this moment. So it shows that connection, even if it's not super living and active right now, it can still be a dormant connection that has the capacity to be reawoken kind of once you're able to put in some time and work into it.
As you learned our language, did you have those feelings of reconnection, I guess?
Yeah, I grew up in Portland. I grew up away from our tribal community without a lot of contact to our culture or our language, our ways of doing things. And so as I was learning the language, I feel like there were things that I was noticing in the language where I was like, oh, this feels familiar. Oh, this makes sense with some of the other things. Like a language encompasses the values and the ideas and philosophies and hopes and everything, the worldview of the community that speaks it. So thinking about the ways that we greet, or the ways that we say goodbye, or the ways that we introduce ourselves, it reveals a lot about, like, oh yeah, that's why I always hear people talking about their family, or oh, that's like we have so many words for our family. We have 2 words for grandmother, 2 words for grandfather. We have older and younger sibling words. So to be able to describe your family, you need like 24 words technically to like actually get everyone out there, because our families are huge. So we have so many words to describe all those people because they're important, and we want to know exactly how we're connected to them.
Now, let's just go back to the introduction. After you said, good morning, my name is, you said a few more things. Can you translate into English what you were saying?
Yeah, so I said, my name is Keegan Livermore in English. I work at the Ichishkin Sinuit language program. I am a shorthand version of I am the strategic planning manager. I'm like, I'm a planner for the language is like what I was trying to say.
That was all you said?
That's all I said.
Good.
The words just sound long, so it sounds intimidating. You're like, oh, I just said this thing in English. Like, English makes it so easygoing. It's like, oh, it's just that, because we use it so easily. But Ichishki and everything sounds so formal because of the way that we perceive it.
Okay, I'm going to act as the community member. So when I ask these questions, folks out there listening to 1490 right now, just think of it, I'm asking it on behalf of all of us. And then if I miss out on any questions, remember, Reggie's here. You can relay the question to him, 865-3632. Or if you just feel like listening, that's totally fine too. Okay, so there was a survey that you brought up the last time you were here, and I saw where the survey was making its way around the community. Can you tell us the purpose of the language program's community survey?
Yeah, the biggest thing I think with our language is that we know, everyone at least knows a little bit about it. We have this sense that our language is endangered or dying, that people aren't using it as much right now. And so for our purposes at the language program, we might be applying for grants or for projects, and we need some data. We need to say, this many people speak the language, this is how common it is, and all that. And again, everyone sort of has a rough sense of like, okay, I don't know too many people who speak the language fluently or can have conversations in it or whatever. So in 2003, the language program did some interviews with a number of elders to sort of get some numbers data about our language. And that, I think they interviewed maybe 350 elders 20 years ago. And there were maybe 200 of them that were fluent speakers, or said they were fluent speakers at the time. 10 years later, so 2014-ish, there was a community survey. They, I think, got responses from maybe 250 people, and there were maybe a couple dozen fluent speakers living at that time. So as I was thinking about us restarting or reawakening this program, thinking we need some data. We know there have been teachers in all these school districts. There have been community partners and programs that have been sharing language and culture. We need some updated numbers. We're 10 years out of date. And so I likened it to the United States Census, which they do every 10 years. So I'm like, oh, we're due for a survey kind of around now. So we were, with the support of our tribal council and our general council executives, able to send this short community survey out to all enrolled members. We mailed out about 8,000 surveys at the beginning of October. just trying to get a sense of if people are still interested in revitalizing our language, how many fluent speakers live in that household, how many people can understand words, can ask questions, can tell a short story, can have a conversation, because those are different levels of proficiency, how much you're able to use. So instead of just capturing how many fluent speakers we have, we wanted to give people a chance to really think about like, well, okay, I use words every day. Or, oh, I can ask some questions of people, or I can answer questions when people ask me stuff. Or, oh, when I'm at Longhouse, I can tell a short story on the wash in the language and then translate it for people.
Hey, Keegan, what would you call that then? Like a fluent speaker can just speak and understand all words, but what would you call it if I only know, a few words, or I can speak a few sentences? What would you call that?
I think a lot of people would still say I'm still learning the language. But if you're able to use it, if you're able to communicate stuff in the language, even if it's a couple of words or a couple of phrases or a couple of questions, I would say you're still a speaker of the language. You're using it, you're able to convey meaning, and people are able to understand you. And a speaker may feel like a tall bar for people of like, oh, I need to be able to tell a full story or a legend or all these things. But if you're able to use it and you choose to use it every day, it's an intentional choice. It's not just going to happen, right? You have to be like, oh, I'm always going to say "shechmaitzku" to people. I'm eliminating good morning from my vocabulary. I'm going to commit to using the language in intentional ways. Then you're speaking the language. You're using it. You may not consider yourself fluent, which is maybe an even taller bar. Oh, you need to know all these things. But if you're using it, I think you should absolutely consider yourself a speaker and a user of our language.
Okay, Keegan, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sometimes the question pops in my head and I'm like, hey, I want to ask this.
No, that's a really important question. I know our people as we've been meeting with elders and teachers and parents and youth, like we are very, as a people, as a community, we're very hard on ourselves when it comes to how much we know about our language and culture. People don't think they know as much as they do. So there are people who are like, oh, I don't really know the language, but it's like, well, you know all the words for your family members. You know how to greet people. You probably know how to introduce yourself. Like that's a lot of language for how much our people often have exposure to it. So I think one thing that we're trying to do with the language program is sort of help people realize how much they already know just by being a part of this community, how much they're able to say already. And eventually help them figure out some new fun things they want to say on top of that. But yeah, the survey's been really fun to see people's responses. There's a bit at the end of also collecting like what dialects people have in their houses, because some people have more information about that than others. So it's fun to see that. And then there's a fun question at the very bottom of like, do you have any feedback or suggestions for us? I'm just trying to get very generous free ideas from our members. So we're looking those over. We've had maybe, I think 150 people put in some sort of suggestion or idea of things they'd like to see. So as we sort of think about our next steps, we're definitely working on kind of weaving those in of types of materials, types of classes, areas that they want us to focus on. It's been super, super interesting to kind of see people's perspectives. We've been doing this work ourselves for a number of years. We've been sort of in the thick of it and thinking very intentionally and stressfully about it, but getting people who think about it often, but like this isn't their like life's work or like what they do for 40 hours a week. It's been fun to get those, not outsider, but those additional perspectives of people who are having new thoughts about it. Because for us, it's like, oh, wait, I feel like I thought that 2 years ago, but I didn't do anything about it. So it's been fun to kind of get those cycles of kind of fresh energy from the membership.
I need to fill mine out.
Yeah.
Other people out there, Yakama tribal members, one was mailed to you. Maybe you just didn't see it. I didn't see it. It's like mail stacks up, and some things I open, some things I don't. Mm-hmm. I need to find it and fill it out. mail it back.
If you can't find it, you can call our office and we can help you fill it out. Or if you contact us, we have an online version of it as well.
Okay.
But I've loved getting the mailed copies back. They're very fun to see people's actual handwriting on them and the stamps that people choose when they mail them back and all that. It's been very cute to go to our mailbox every week and see like, ooh, what new treasures are we going to find today?
Ichishkin Taimut?
Yep, the Ichishkin Taimut.
All right, so I saw this in an email. You were sharing, or somebody from your program was sharing, that this is now available. It has to do with news delivered in our language. Can you tell us about it, please?
Yeah, our Ichishkin Taimut, our Yakama news little briefing, is one of two initiatives that we're doing right now to try and just get more materials and more language out to people. There's this fun thing when you're like learning Spanish or French or German where they point you to like music in the language, news like broadcasts in the language, newspapers, etc. We don't really have that right now, right? Like we're not in like a super high usage. So there are two opportunities that we're doing. This kind of news briefing that we're trying to do twice a week was a project that was proposed by Heritage University in partnership with Amazon because they have a number of ongoing like projects and things. So this kind of twice a week briefing that we're doing, and then our word of the day that we've been doing for, I think we're in our 4th month now. I think we started at the end of July. So these are two, we're trying to make them short little audio or video clips that we can get out to people on email and YouTube and social media and through technology, just so they can have access to more language every day, so they can hear versions of it. This news briefing is cool because it's through those Alexa speakers. There's this function that you can do where you can set up your flash briefing. And so in the morning or once a day, you could say, hey, Alexa, tell me my flash briefing for the day. So you can go through and pick different news items or news sources. So maybe you have like a sports one and maybe you have like a weather one. You can add like a joke of the day into it. So it's like a short little briefing of kind of what information you want. So we've set up with Amazon to have a little Ichishkin briefing that you can add to your flash briefing on your Alexa device every Tuesday, usually every Tuesday and Friday. Some weeks are a little harder to schedule, but every Tuesday and Friday, we are producing with the help of some university interns from Heritage about a minute and a half to 2 minutes of Ichishkin speech of kind of describing some of the news, our word of the day, what the weather's like. Like last week, we were talking about at Heritage, they were honoring some elders yesterday. And then last night, Tatanka Means, one of the actors from Reservation Dogs. Nope. Killers of the Flower Moon. That's what it was. One of the actors in that latest movie was presenting or performing at Heritage last night. So I worked with those interns to gather and translate some of those events. And then I am currently recording the Ichishkin voice, and then one of them is providing an English translation afterwards. So it's a little bit of news in Ichishkin. It's a fun task for us. During October, I had to think about like, how would I say trunk or treat in the language? Or like, I don't know that anyone's tried to translate trunk or treat yet. And I'm like, well, it's a walk around for candy. A walk around for dessert, sort of, is what I called it. So it's a fun task for me to think about. How would I say some of these things?
All right. So somebody who has access to use the Alexa app goes on to the Alexa app, and when they cue it to play the language news, you come up reading the news.
Yeah, it's my voice.
Okay.
So basically we're submitting like an audio recording to Amazon twice a week.
Okay.
That's the first half is me, and then the second half is one of our interns reading in English. But yeah, if you search, it's an Amazon skill. If you search Yakama, it should pop up. Ichishkin Yakama Ichishkin Taimunt. Taimunt is the news briefing or the sharing news. So it's our little news bit twice a week. And there actually was an idea, and I'm so angry at myself that I didn't think of this before, that I should be connecting with you all here at the radio to play them on Tuesdays and Fridays, because it's just an audio file. I can send you an audio file. But if that's something that you all would be interested in, I would be happy to share those along so you can play those on those. They're like dated and all that.
Yes,
but it's some news. Yeah. So I'll definitely, we will figure out the logistics of that. I'm like, oh, I should put this on the radio. I'm like, I didn't think of that because it was so Amazon specific up until like yesterday.
Well, we do the word of the day often throughout the workday. So.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of material we can get out. Yeah. So it's been really cool. And it's been fun trying to think about kind of how can we describe our still modern things of trunk or treats and basketball games and elder movie ticket pickups and all that. Like how our language is still modern. We can describe all these things in it still. So it's a fun demonstration of that for me.
Is it something that everybody has welcomed to think that you can hear the news in Ichishkin or current events in Ichishkin on Amazon's Alexa? Have there been some who said our language isn't for that?
I have not heard that directly. No one's maybe complained to me about that, which I understand that our language is, of course, special and sacred and important, but we have all sorts of different avenues for getting things out there. I think there's a time and place to be talking about some things. I'm not sharing, for example, cultural teachings these recordings.
Good point.
I'm just sharing about what the weather's like and what the word of the day is and some news that my students have found on their Facebooks or in newspapers. So it's more about the method of delivery of, I'm just trying to get some language out there. I hope that as we continue these long term, I would want it to be a fun test for people who are maybe taking classes or learning the language to see how much they understand as they're listening to it. We're providing an English recording at the end so people can be like, okay, wait, I thought I heard this word. I thought I heard about this thing. Or like, oh, I think I understood most of what they were talking about, or, oh, like this section or whatever. So just trying to get more opportunities out there for people to, one, hear it, kind of talking about in a longer form, more than just a word or a sentence. Because it's like 2 minutes of audio in Ichishkin, which is probably one of our longest public products yet. So it's a fun opportunity. We're having a lot of fun with it.
So those of us who are non-Alexa users, you heard Keegan mention, hopefully we'll be bringing that to the KYNR radio airwaves. So we'll hear it.
Yeah. We're recording them on Mondays and Thursdays, so they're ready for Tuesday and Friday. So it's a pretty easy production. It's like maybe an hour and a half for us. It's super fun with our interns.
You heard us talk about this word of the day. Maybe you're listening and you're saying, I haven't heard about that yet. So the word of the day is available on what platforms, and then how did that come about?
Yeah, our word of the day is we're posting them on our YouTube channel. If you go onto YouTube and search Yakama Nation Language Program, then you'll find a whole bunch of words of the day. This is, I think, a pretty common type of creation for a lot of indigenous tribes working on their languages. It's this idea that if you learn a word a day, then at the end of the year, you have 365 new words. Of trying to think about what is a small step that I can take towards learning my language every day. Like, well, I can learn a new word and maybe a way to say it. So there was one version. Tribal Council was working with the public information officer back in January, and they did like a week of them. And then I think that staff member moved to a different position. So there was a little bit from Tribal Council at the beginning of this calendar year. And then in June or July, I was meeting with some of our Tribal Council Culture Committee members, and they were like, hey, we were trying to do this thing. We'd love for you to pick it back up now that you actually have staff members and capacity and people who have ideas about this. So I've asked Bronsko Jim, one of our community outreach coordinators, to take it on. And he's fun to have on this project because he's, again, from the river. So he speaks a different dialect than I think what a lot of people are used to hearing. I think a lot of people are used to hearing a valley dialect. So being able to showcase his Wahupam dialect from the river has been really, really cool. For those of us who have been able to spend more time with the language, we're like, oh, wait, I recognize enough of that word. Or like, oh, that one's just totally different than what I know from my valley dialect. So it's been a cool experience to sort of see another side of our language that I don't think has been highlighted as much as others so far.
The word today was quit, but I can't remember. I'd have to go back and watch it again.
Out.
Mm-hmm. How do you guys come up with what words you'll share and teach?
I leave that entirely up to Bronsko. It's sort of a pull out of a hat sort of deal, I think, sometimes of like, okay, like what do I want to do this week or what do I want to do next week? Because he records them like surprise, surprise, like not to reveal trade secrets, but he records them all in one go. Like, so he records Monday through Friday on like one day. So if you really pay attention, he's like wearing the same clothes. Like in each, like his video is like super tidy up there, but like he does it in one go because otherwise it would be so tedious to like, okay, Monday record Tuesdays and then Tuesday record Wednesdays. So sometimes they'll be sort of thematic. So there was one week he did hunting words. So like the Monday was the verb, I am going hunting or whatever. And then Tuesday through Friday were different things that people go hunting for example. I think he's doing some house words right now.
Yeah, he did one where it was the different rooms from, restroom to kitchen, and he did that one. Yeah,
so sometimes if there's inspiration, I think they're sort of thematically connected. But other times it's like, okay, what are things that I've heard people say that some of his elders and some people in his Rock Creek community down there, like, what are things that I could share with people? So sometimes they're not as connected as others, but it's still a word of the day. So it works pretty nicely.
Well, for me, as I look at the screen, it kind of helps with the spelling too, because I'm not a very good speller at Ichishken. So the word a couple of days ago or yesterday was what or how, which is mish, but it was M-I, then the S had like a symbol or something.
Yeah, it looks like it has like a little like bunny ears on top of it, like a little like V on top of it. That is using the Umatilla alphabet. So again, Umatilla, one of our like sibling languages across the river. They use a different writing system than we typically do up here. They adopted, I think that's called an S hat or an S caret. It's like a hat or caret or something. But that S with the little V over it means that there's a secret H after it. So it makes that sh sound, that SH sound that we would write up here. So like
yeah. So if somebody texts me and then if somebody texts you and you text back what, do you still just put MISH?
Yeah. Like that's something that you could use. I know some elders when they answer the phone, they'll say like mish or like mishakut is like something else that I hear them say. I'm just like what, like what's up. Okay. It's a funny. And then even like when I was teaching at the tribal school, and a student would like raise their hand or like ask me a question, I'd be like mish, like with like the confused look of just like what? Like I don't understand what you're saying. So that is a fun little insert of like, again, like an easy casual way to use some language and also just amuse yourself every 5 minutes. Especially maybe if you have children, that would be a fun one to introduce into your vocabulary.
Okay, let's talk about the work being done with local schools. How involved with curriculum is the language program of the Yakama Nation when it comes to our schools here on the reservation?
We, I think, are pretty involved. We've certified all of the teachers, or are working to certify all of them. So the tribe is giving their stamp of approval that this person knows how to teach our language for credit in many of these high schools and middle schools and elementary schools. We meet with teachers. We kind of have like a little like drop-in professional learning community is what they're called in education spaces. but we have a little drop-in space on Wednesdays. So when students are released early on Wednesdays around here, teachers have time for like meetings or to like chat with other teachers about what they're teaching and all that. So I connect with teachers at least kind of once a week like that. Just to kind of hear what's going on in their classrooms, answer questions. They're like, oh, this thing came up and I wasn't sure what it meant or how to like look at it. And then I also meet with teachers and school districts kind of regularly, kind of as much as they want, to look over the lessons they're doing, brainstorm ideas for what they could teach next, and yeah, some of the standards and stuff. So we work with, right now, I think it's probably 8 or 9 different school districts around here who all have some version of programming. So it's a really, really cool opportunity. And the districts get some funding for it, so we help kind of oversee that and make sure that their teachers have support.
What high schools around here have the option for students to take Ichishkin?
High schools, the tribal school offers it, Toppenish High School offers it, Wapato and White Swan High Schools offer it, and then Golden Dale is offering it as well.
Does Bronsko teach it there?
No, actually, Bronsko's sister Elsie is teaching it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cute. Because again, like there are some families that have really been actively working on holding on to the language. So you'll often find it's not intentionally a family affair, but it feels like that of, oh yeah, I recognize the people because I see them very often at many of these places. Like many of my like aunties and cousins are also teaching the language in some capacity. So it's common values that I think really pop up. It's very cool.
Can you tell us about public high schools being able to use Ichishkin to fulfill a foreign language curriculum requirement for graduation?
Yeah, so the state of Washington has actually moved to call it a world language, not a foreign language, because as more indigenous languages were being taught, it was like, well, the indigenous languages were there first. Why? They're not foreign. English is foreign technically here. So the state has moved for it being a world language requirement.
As is Spanish.
Yeah. So Spanish falls into that as well. So world is a little more general and not as polarizing in many places. But I think all the high schools that I mentioned are offering Ichishkin for a world language credit. So those students, if they're high school students, high school seniors need at least 2 years of a world language to graduate. In most cases, unless they're doing like a career technical education path. So all of those high schools are currently offering our language for credit. So there's many students that have graduated from high school with Ichishkin as their world language on their high school transcript and diploma and all that.
That's good. When do you think this all started? Like, is there something in the files or the records, or did you learn that? Like, okay, so like Toppenish School District started in 19 or 2000, whatever, or do you know?
I don't know specifically. That would be, I think, some fun research for us to do kind of with each school district specifically. I know that the Johnson O'Malley Coalition, the JOM Coalition, started in the 1970s, I think, in getting some version of language and culture into schools. I know some of our teachers have been teaching in those schools since I think the 90s. I think one of our teachers has been teaching in some capacity in like Toppenish School District. So it's been around for a while. It's become more formal with the teacher certification. That's sort of a newer occurrence for us. The seal of biliteracy is a little newer, so it's gotten more recognized in, I'd say, probably the past 10 or 15 years as something that is really for credit and has standards and is a really, really cool opportunity for students.
Well, you said that the tribe gives a stamp of approval to language and culture teachers. Like, is there a specific criteria or like a test, or like it's just they go before the culture committee of the Yakama Nation or whatever it's called, and they just say, okay, let's talk to you, and then they just approve that person?
That is, it's a process we're still sort of piloting. last year, or maybe a year and a half ago, time means nothing to me. In the past couple of years, we certified 16 of our teachers through the tribe. A lot of these were teachers who had already been doing the teaching for a number of years. But the tribe hadn't been offering this certification before then. So from those teachers, there were some requirements from the state of Washington. They had to take a class on identifying types of or markers of abuse in school settings. That's a really high priority for schools, is being able to recognize signs of that. So that was the only course that they had to take. So from those teachers, we were just asking for a small portfolio of materials, so lessons or things that they've made for their classrooms, artifacts things that their students had made or done under their kind of teaching. So just kind of getting a sense of what they are capable of in terms of teaching.
Maybe just meeting them too.
Yeah.
Like finding out who they are. Like, you don't have to, maybe you don't have any paperwork, but just demonstrating, who you are and that you speak the language and know the culture.
Yeah. And a lot of those teachers were, again, teachers who had been teaching for a while. So they included Roger Jacob, who's been in Wapato for 10 years, Sandy Wyman, who's been at Head Start for forever, Zelda Winier, who'd been at tribal school for over 10 years, Rose Miller, who had been in Toppenish for at least 20 years. So they were teachers who had clearly been teaching the language for a while, but they had their certification had been a little more haphazard. Okay, we just need to sort of make this fit because the tribe wasn't offering it back then. So we're figuring out kind of what our second cohort looks like, and it'll be, again, some of these materials, us as a program sort of observing their teaching, getting a feel for what their style is or what they want to focus on, some of the extra bits they want to include. So it's a cool way for the tribe to be engaged with the public schools around here and to make sure that our students have access to this learning and these teachings.
Okay, before we move on, I have to share, my girlfriend's son is 9. He goes to Hera. And he's been learning the language, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. One of our teachers out there, Brittany Alec, she works with the elementary school students as well as the middle school students. So what she's doing right now, or the way that they have her set up, is she'll see students for a week at a time, the same time block. And then she'll see them a couple weeks later for another week. So she sort of rotates through them, but it's on the same rotation in that elementary school as the art teacher or the music teacher. So it's considered a specials class, as an extra little piece. She's been having a lot of fun with it. It's been cool to hear about the things coming out of her classroom and all the antics her kids get up to and the questions they ask.
Well, it's working. He knows animals' names without the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So he started with the paper.
Mm-hmm.
The paper had the picture of the animal and then the Ichishkin name of the animal. So then I would say, how do you say bear?
Mm-hmm.
And then he would say, in Native American? That was his way of saying Ichishkin.
Yeah.
And then he would say it.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
Very cool.
So it's paying off.
Yeah, that is music to my ears. I love to hear that.
Okay, Ronnie Washings from the Review is curious about the Language Bowl. He says a few regional neighboring reservations have held tribal language bowls for students. How does the Ichishkin program see this for here on Yakama?
Yeah, so I think, I imagine the bowl that he's referring to was the Umatilla Knowledge Bowl. It was a competition in the spring. I think it was in May usually, where they would invite teams of language students with a mentor to come in. They provided a whole list of sentences, and they were sentences relating to body parts and animals and things. So that the last year of that language competition was in 2019. They did it for 10 years and they were like, we're tired. We have other projects we want to work on. This is cool. You all need to go out and do your own. We can't keep doing this at this scale for all of you. And I'm paraphrasing, and I love and absolutely respect our Umatilla colleagues. This is not me saying funny things about them. It's just we're you all want to do this too, but have your own. So we actually started, I think, in 2019. I think it was 2019 was when we had our like first one here. We had it in June, so it was like a month after, and we've had 3 of them so far. So we had the one in 2019, and then we had one this past June, and then the like last year June. And their opportunities for right now, it's mostly been high school students. But opportunities for them to kind of show off and compete with each other a little bit of their mastery of some targeted vocabulary, their pronunciation, for some of them, their writing skills. It's been really cool to see these kids like sort of come for blood. Like they're ready to like throw down with some of their peers. Like they're like in front of a microphone, like with like a whiteboard. Like it's very funny to see like these kids take it really seriously. And I really respect and appreciate that of they've put time into learning this language and they want to show that off.
Okay, where was this held?
We've held them at Wapato High School, in their kind of like cafeteria auditorium area, because it has the stage and projector and speakers and all that. So it's usually, we have it the week before Treaty Days. So the weekend before, like the Saturday, it's like the 3rd, I think. So right before.
There was one held this last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, last year and this year. So and now that, again, the language program was not fully awake. So I will do a much better job this coming year of making sure this is like advertised and publicized and all that. But we had, I think, 36 students compete this past June.
What schools were they from?
We had a lot we had Wapato High School and middle school, and then we had a student or 2 from the tribal school.
Well, you got to, okay, if you're saying that these kids are out for blood, you need to make it where the school's pride is on the line. So Toppenish versus Wapato versus White Swan versus Tribal School.
We're working on it. Now that we're
serious.
here, yeah, it's like, oh, we're making this super official this year because now like the tribe is like sponsoring it.
And then let us know we have equipment. We should have the equipment. We go and it's on the radio.
Oh, that would be cool. Ooh,
yes.
That would be
really
cool.
Then it's really going to get serious.
I love that.
And then you have a trophy that the winning school gets to hold for that year.
Yeah, so each year we change what like the theme or the topic is. So like last year we were doing food words. So it was like a bunch of food items and then like fruits and vegetables and breads and all like drinks and all that. And then we also had a couple of verb sentences of like, I'm hungry, I was hungry, I am eating, I will eat, I'm making food, I'm cooking, like some like basic kind of phrases around that.
Isn't it Wanawi Shush?
Anawi Shosh is I am hungry. Cheat a shosh is I'm thirsty. So like some like kind of basic vocabulary like that. This past year we did some like daily routine stuff. So we had like some morning routine things like eating breakfast, brushing your teeth, waking up. We had some afternoon things, some evening things. So thinking we decide with the teachers, like, okay, like what topic do we want to choose? We kind of pick it every winter as we start developing it. So it's fun to try and mix things up for students, but also expose them to different language items kind of year to year.
Oh, years ago when I was a kid, so you probably weren't born yet, they had this thing on PBS where schools would go and it was like Jeopardy. But it was, it wasn't big budget or anything. Mm-hmm. And then they did that. What if we had because I teach a multimedia class at White Swan High School, we have cameras, microphones. The kids are learning how to do that, video production and stuff. Mm-hmm. What if we had a smaller scaled down version where we filmed it? So it'd be like 3 students lined up here, 3 lined up here, and then like a moderator asked the question, and then we got to film it.
That would be cool. Yeah,
we should do that.
Yeah, the format that we've been doing, we've had 3 divisions of competition, so like beginner, intermediate, advanced. And a lot of it is, most of it is just kids speaking into a microphone. They'll get a prompt, a visual prompt on the screen, and then I've been the MC because I love speaking on microphones apparently. But I'll give a verbal prompt as well. And then the kids were working. I need to get like a buzzer system for this year. It's been a little, the speaking overlap has been a little difficult. But then we focus on their pronunciation, if it's the right word. The intermediate division is also writing their answers. So students who have focused on that written component can demonstrate those skills as well. We have them writing on like a large whiteboard in front of the audience. So we've done a lot of work to try and make it engaging for the spectators as well.
This stuff is pretty exciting.
It is exciting. It's somehow only like a 3.5 hour event. It's like the Saturday morning before Treaty Days. We usually go like 9 to 12 at Wapato High School. We try and keep it restrained in terms of time. But I mean, as we get more and more competitors, like who knows, maybe it'll have to be an all-day event.
Yeah, hopefully it will be. All right, language meetings and times to share. Are there currently any weekly or monthly gatherings being held for a community to come together and learn and speak and share words and Itchiskin?
We're not currently teaching classes. We're still sort of trying to get our feet underneath us a little bit and organize kind of what do we think our approach is, what do we want to focus on, what materials do we already have. We are currently hosting a little gathering of sorts for elder speakers of our language. We got a request a couple months back from Tucumshish, Virginia Beaver, of like, I want a casual time for elders to be able to come and just visit with each other in the language and all that. So we were hosting those at the Wanadi Community Center. But last week we actually moved into the museum, which is really cool. So on Monday afternoons from 1:30 to 3:30, elders who either remember hearing the language or speak some of the language or consider themselves fluent in the language can come and have some conversation, play some games with us. We're part of it, again, like sort of with the census survey that we've been doing is like, we're just trying to figure out like who's around, who's able to do what, who wants to come party with us and maybe work on some projects or is willing to let us record them for a little bit. So we're just trying to see who's out there and who wants to come do some language with us.
So you said 1:30 to 3:30?
On Monday afternoons at the museum.
Sounds great.
We have some light snacks. Some company, some people from the language program, and then Heather, the curator over at the museum, she's a huge supporter of this. She's like, yeah, we can totally have it there. And then I think we're doing it where every other week she's bringing out some items from their private or from like the collection that's not out on the floor. She's bringing out some items for us to like try talking about and saying something. So we're getting to see some really cool exclusive stuff at these as well. Trying to unlock some memories and stories from people.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like really the programs are starting to overlap and work together.
Yeah, we know that we as a tiny little program, we can't teach every class, we can't be at every event. So we are more than happy to work with other programs to get language out to them. If that's maybe one of our staff members or some materials or recordings that we can provide them. Or if there are programs wanting to develop some language stuff. I know the Boys and Girls Club is interested in developing some activities with their youth. So we're figuring out ways to kind of plug language into more places so we don't have to be the ones doing every single language item because we would work ourselves crazy if we did that.
Well, it's like we talked about earlier. Once you have that 2-minute current event / news, once you share it with us and all the programs begin to work together, and that's going to help because you're teaching whoever has access to a radio. Mm-hmm. They're then learning and hearing the news. Same with the word of the day. It goes out to the tribe's email. So anybody then has access. Well, everybody has access on YouTube, but they get to see that. So maybe that's like their lesson they get in their email each day. But you're right. You can't expect a small staff to be able to be everywhere at once. So it's good that programs are beginning to do this where we're coming together.
Yeah, it's the same approach with all of our school districts. We're working with all these schools and all these teachers across our huge reservation and seated areas, honestly. Like the class down in Goldendale, we have a teacher doing some stuff up in Ellensburg. We're working to help develop a class up in Yakama School District at the high school level. So we're really trying to spread our resources as far out as we can, because we know our people are all over the place, and have varying time commitments and games they have to go to for their kids and their work schedules and all that. So we're just trying to make things available kind of wherever you're at, you're able to get something. Because then we can build up from there as people start feeling more comfortable and familiar with it.
How do you say, like, maybe not the word party, but like get together? Like a powwow is a powwow, but that's not a Itchiskin word. Like, what would be the word for like celebration, like gathering?
A celebration gathering I've seen, it's funnily enough the same word as like beautiful. Ayayat is one that I've seen and heard. I've also seen why you meet is like a gathering of like a more general kind. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. The fun thing, I was having a conversation yesterday about like how many words do you think someone would need to know of our language to like feel like they can communicate most of their stuff? And I'm like, well, in English, it's fine because you can learn a base word, and then there's like adverbs and modifiers and stuff you can put on it that are like just separate words you can learn. In Ichishkin, it's all embedded in the same word. So like walking around versus walking under, those are two completely different words. So you need to learn maybe way more than you think you do to actually express everything that we can in English so easily. So it's a fun task for us to think about how we get people there.
We learned from your last visit you're a University of Oregon student, and you learned under our tribal language teacher, Tecumshish. Can you tell us what that experience was like? And I know this could take a whole hour.
Yeah,
we're kind of running out of time.
There's all sorts of things, and she's still teaching with the University of Oregon in partnership with Reagan Anderson, actually, another one of my coordinators. It was really, 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 really cool. I know a lot of our tribal members have gone to the U of O because Tecumshish was there, or is there. She lives here now, but she still works there. So it's like, is she there? It's like, yeah, she is still there. She's just not physically there. I think there's something really special about being able to have an elder be a part of the learning process so formatively. It's hard, I think, to do that in like a public school or like a K-12 school because the schedule is so all over the place. And often those teachers are teaching 6 classes a day of that language class. So like an elder would have like an 8-hour work day, which is a lot of energy and like, it's like not always feasible to ask. So being able to, like the projects and assignments that we were working on, like we often had like consultation time with her of like, okay, I'm gathering this language. Are there other words or things that I should say like this? Or are there different ways that I should say this? So being able to consult her as a resource and to get her perspective was really, really cool on those projects.
If you come back next month, we could talk more about it.
Yeah,
because I'm sure there's more stories that you could remember just to honor her, you know?
Yeah. Her 102nd birthday is at the end of the month.
That's amazing.
She turns 102. Like it's like the 29th or 30th or something of November. So she's has been a force to be reckoned with. We're working on some stuff to be a part of her birthday celebrations.
Do you have advice for community members who may want to go into the same language program, or parents or grandparents of kids who may want to have them, the high school kids, maybe look into that for a field they go into?
I think a big piece as I think about people, the teachers that have gone through those programs, myself included, like it's those teachers who are understanding the context that we live in, the culture that we're connected to, and the importance of that. I think a lot of it's hard to this is an attitude I saw in many of my students when I was teaching, of students, youth who had lived here their entire lives, who were like, oh yeah, it's been here, it's going to be here, sort of taking it for granted a little bit. Not in a negative or pejorative sense, but just thinking like, oh, there's going to be someone doing the language. So someone's going to be able to share it with me. And a lot of the teachers who have stepped up have realized, oh, we don't have as many elders as we did before. They felt a responsibility to the language to try and continue it further. So I think if I were to encourage parents and grandparents and community members to try and help their youth understand how special our culture and our language is and how important it is. And I know it's hard to have those lectures with teenagers because they just sort of often check out after a while of like, okay, someone's telling me I need to take something important. Great, whatever. It might be important later. I know a lot of people a lot of now adults who took some of these classes when they were in high school, and then 15 years later were like, oh, I really wish I paid attention to that. Or, oh, I had it and I didn't realize how special it was when I had it. And they were like, oh, I remember some things from that class. I remember some of the words, some of the greetings, how to introduce myself. So it's just helping them understand that, yes, we are modern and it's the 21st century, but our language can still be a part of that, and it's still special for that.
Great advice. Thank you, Keegan. Okay, with it being the Yakama Nation language program, how much daily office interaction is done in Ichishkin by staff?
Not as much as we should. I saw this question on there. I'm just like, oh, that is something that we could try.
He's an honest man.
It's like
he could have lied.
It's like, yeah, it's like, oh, it's 100% airtime. It's like, well, it's like, no, we're not that good. Like we are all still learners of the language ourselves. So there are times when and again, it's thinking about the choice to use it. Oh, I'm like, I could ask this in English and we could like just have it, but it's choosing to make yourself uncomfortable and trying to say something. And it's a hard thing to do. Like even for us, like we're paid to do this full time. It's like, oh, I could be better at that. Absolutely. So there, like a lot of the like catching up conversations or asking about people or like where, like some of the easier things of like, oh, like what did you do today? Where are you going? How is this person? What did you do over the weekend? That we've done in the language a fair amount, because it's like, yeah, we know how to do this, but it would be a fun challenge for me to set for us, where next month when we come back, I will maybe report some additional things that we're talking about in the language.
Would you believe me if I told you that was a full hour?
I would. It's impressive because it feels, again, just so effortless and seamless. I clearly just love talking about this and could do it for hours and hours at a time.
His name is Keegan Livermore. He works with the Yakama Nation language program. If anybody has any questions, how do they reach out?
You can call the tribal extension is 4805, or you can email us at language@yakama.com.
Keegan Livermore, thank you for joining us this morning.
Of course, I'm always happy to come back.